Hello and welcome back to the Battle Room. My name is Colin, as always, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Raghav. I'm Colin's best friend and best team builder. Recently got day 2 at the World Championships. I've been playing for I don't know how many years it's been now, like 6. But
I
yeah,
think so.
that's
So Raghav recently, we used the same team, we built together, practiced together. But this is about Raghav, because Raghav was actually able to close the deal and make day 2, and then continue on and, have a chance to become the world champion. Obviously, it didn't work out, but I do think Raghav still performed very, very well. And I wanted to talk about the team, and Raghav obviously wanted to share his experience with the tournament and with the team. So let's just get into it. So, obviously, this is the World Championships. It's a big deal. How'd you come up with the idea for this team?
so after nationals, I decided that I didn't want to use the exact same team. It ended up being like really, really close, which is funny, but that wasn't like the plan at all. I was really inspired by Pado's team at like a European regional, where he used like Galar Moltres, Porygon 2, and then like Kyogre, Zacian, Shedinja. And like my first thought was like, okay, Moltres is terrible. Like we'll start there. Like I'm gonna take that team and change Moltres because I don't know, it looked like really weird. And so the team kind of just like evolved from there, and then in testing and talking with you, we like realized Shedinja is just extremely broken, and it's like one of those things that in the meta you can identify as like a really good tool in a max format because it can just eat hits, like Dynamax moves especially. And even if they do damage to Shedinja, it's like, all right, you did 1 HP, like you, it's still like a lot of momentum in your favor. So that was kind of like the main idea behind the team, is just using Shedinja next to the most comfortable and, in my opinion, the most broken restricted core in Zacian Kyogre.
Did you consider any other cores going into Worlds, or was it just always Asian Kyogre?
I mean, like I try to keep like an open mind because I always feel like there's no like one specific call for a tournament or like one specific team that will win or do well, and there anything could do well if it's if it's really cool. So I tried to keep an open mind, but for most of it, it was just like, yeah, Zacian Kyogre is like so comfortable, and I tried building other things. Like I tried doing stuff with Calyrex-S. I had Lunala Groudon in the back of my mind because I've just been a fan of it like kind of the whole season. But yeah, it was mostly just Zacian Kyogre.
So you touched on Shedinja a little bit. Obviously, that's like kind of the more interesting mon, a mon that is very, I think, polarizing. You either love it or you hate it, and a lot of people hate it.
Right.
So with Shedinja, was it harder to build with it? Was it different? Like obviously you mentioned it was the focus of, your team. So just just touch on Shedinja a little more.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience because, as you said, like in the past, I kind of hated the Pokemon. I thought it was stupid. Like I'm not gonna use that.
Yeah.
But this year, it getting Poltergeist made it like a lot more enticing, I guess, and in a Dynamax format, like Poltergeist just lets you actually do damage. Like it does like almost half to Zacian. It can do over half to Kyogre. It's pretty crazy. But building it with it was really difficult because, again, it's just so volatile, right? And that's part of the benefit of it, is that you can create so many like chaotic game states that ultimately might favor you because you're the one in control. You're the one who gets to make the decision. Do I ally switch? Do I endure? Do I attack? Do I switch out? But yeah, it made it weird because it's not like doing a particular thing. Instead, it's like it has the threat to do like a million things. So it made some game plans really straightforward, where you kind of play to an end game where like, all right, Shedinja's just like really good here. But then there's other like game plans where it's like, yeah, it's not really a concrete like flow chart. You kind of just have to see how it goes and like, all right, I'll switch in Shedinja here. Do I ally switch? Like, so it made it difficult because sometimes you'd view it as like a support Pokemon, but then in other situations it's like it's doing damage. And yeah, so building around it was kind of hard because I there were a lot of times where I wanted 7 Pokemon on the team. Like I really wanted Rillaboom on the team, or yeah, Rillaboom was probably the big one I would want on the team.
So obviously with the World Championships, it's a big deal. A lot of players dream of winning Worlds, most important tournament of the year. Do you think that your prep differed from this tournament as opposed to, the other tournaments you went to this year? Because I know you went to Milwaukee and then Columbus, so you had those two
Yeah.
tournaments, and obviously you've been at tournaments in the past, so.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, I think this year we were doing different prep in general, like in past years, right? For a regional or something, I feel pretty confident going in because I'm just like laddering all the time, building a bunch of teams, and I usually have like 3 or 4 teams that I'm like, yeah, this could win a regional pretty easily.
Yeah.
But going into like big tournaments like nationals or worlds, I generally have very dedicated prep in terms of like matchups at the time and just kind of optimizing every aspect of the team and being like as familiar as possible with it. So I think this really started in like 2017 nationals for me, where I made like a giant calc doc. This is probably inspired by like what Wolf did in like 2016 when he won Worlds, and he made like a video about it. And okay, I can't say that the calc doc has ever been like really useful for me because I never really check it. But what's more important is like what we started doing this year, where you play a bunch of matchups that you feel are important and kind of write down exactly what you want to do and the important information and like the leads and like multiple game plans that you can approach the matchup with. And so we did do like a pretty comprehensive breakdown of that.
The matchup doc, obviously, like I was a part of it, but I do think the matchup doc was something we didn't really do before. I know for Nats we made like a rough one, but this one was like definitely like we filled as much of it out as we possibly could.
Yeah, it was kind of weird this year, especially because like for me it was kind of a big deal going back to events because I've talked about this with you, how Australia in 2020 was kind of like a big tournament for me, and that I felt extremely anxious at the beginning, but then as I played it just like went away, and I played like better than I have ever felt in tournament before, other than like when I won my first regional, which was like I came in with no expectations and I was just clicking buttons and I won the whole thing because I felt like so calm. And so ever since then, like I hadn't really felt like I was able to go to an event without being like extremely anxious. And so I finally feel like I broke that at Australia, and then the pandemic happened. And I was feeling really good about that season. I was like, this is my year. I'm going to crush it. I already got like top 4 at an IC. I'm going to keep it going, right? I got the stipend to Berlin. Then obviously COVID happened and a bunch of worse shit happened, which, like whatever. I don't get to play Pokemon. That's okay. But yeah, Milwaukee was a big tournament. I was really scared that my anxiety would be way worse. And I lost the first round too. But then like after losing, I was like, like that was literally the worst thing that could have happened round 1. So it's fine. And I ended up finishing X2. And my big takeaway from that tournament was just like, this is fine. Like I can do it. Like I could win any tournament if, things go well for me. So going into NAIC, we still didn't go as hard just because I was really trying to like approach with the mentality of like, not to like stress myself out. Plus we were going with the same team, so we were already kind of comfortable. And I mean, you and Kimo know I was this close to bringing Rinya's side. But that's your fault. So
I still think you could have done well.
I would have done well, there's no doubt. But I'm happy with what I brought. But yeah, the prep for Milwaukee and Nationals was definitely a little bit different because I felt like I wasn't fully ready to be like, I guess this all in. Yeah, because like there's like certain stakes with like putting that much of your effort into something, then if it doesn't work out, you feel crushed. So
yeah, believe me,
I mean,
know.
I kind of I would self-sabotage in the past too, like Berlin EUIC 2019, Kimo ended up getting top 8, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude, I had the same team, and then the night before I was like, I can't do this, I'm gonna use Rayquaza Groudon, and I went like 5-4 or something, and I mean obviously I regret it. It was a terrible team, but yeah, it's just sometimes like really difficult to be okay with like, I might do bad even though I put all this effort into it. But for Worlds, I think just coming out of NAIC doing really well, like I don't remember what place I got. It was like top 16 or something. I felt really good. I was like, okay, I went X2 both days. I needed to do a little better to cut, but that's fine. And so I was like, I'm really motivated to, you know, win worlds at this point. And yeah, so we went really hard for this. I felt really good about, you know, what we were working on with Shedinja. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is being smart about your prep, because you could just so mindlessly do stuff and it won't help you, especially in this format where you kind of just want to be as familiar with your game plans as possible. It's a lot less, you know, reactive than, in my opinion, in other formats we've played. This doesn't apply to James Evans' team, because I just don't know how it works at all, but he just plays like a god with it. So, yeah. I think a good example would probably be like Agati and his Torn Ogre 6 and how well he did at Nationals, and how it was just so clear he was crushing ladder too. It was just so clear that he had such a good game plan and he knew what to do in almost every matchup.
I felt the same way about like Edu at Worlds. It just seemed like every single time, every matchup he approached, he just knew exactly what he'd done because he had played that team for like 6 months or whatever. So it was one of
and
those
that's
things.
like the benefit of using, you know, something you've worked on the whole year. It definitely did feel that way, especially because he went undefeated. It's like, it's clear that like he knew what to do in pretty much every matchup. And it's important too, because that team that he won with, I thought it was like kind of weaker into some of the adjustments that were being made in the meta with like bulky Charizard and weakness policy Charizard. But you could see on stream like he he played around it like really well and knew how to adjust versus this meta change. So that is like, in my opinion, the most important thing to do, which is just like know your matchups and like be so familiar with your team.
So obviously you started in day one, which, I mean, historically in the past, statistically, winning worlds from day one is almost impossible. It's very difficult. We've seen, I think Wolf's the only person to ever win from day one, and then
that doesn't count. His team was too good.
But like,
top 4,
if we're not gonna
8.
count that, then no one has ever, you know, like won without like.
Now, of course you can count it, but it's just that was crazy. Like
it was probably
Marcus
the strongest
got
team
top
ever
4,
won.
Billa got top 8. I think they're all in day one. I'm not sure.
They all were. I think so. I think they all were. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Edu got top 4 that year too as well from day one, and John got second from day one. That was a weird year, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that one was a weird year, but like this year, I believe in top 8 there was only one player from day one, which was Calvonix. So like,
right, Calvin.
How do you feel about like starting in day one? Is there anything that's influencing your team building or your decision making going into the tournament because you're starting at this historically, statistically disadvantage?
I mean, I think there's 2 things. The first thing is that having a day 2 invite is just such an advantage. I don't think people understand that, like, it is, like, unfair. It is such an advantage. I do think NA needs more day 2 slots, but whatever. In day 1, I mean, it changes your prep a little bit in that, I mean, I've never had to prepare for, like, day 2 only. So you kind of just go into day 1 with trying to have your broadest matchup spread, and the absolute mentality you should have is, my goal is to make it past day 1. I'm not saving like a team for day 2, or like I'm not going to use the better team the next day or anything like that. Just because it is so hard to make it past day 1, that should be your goal. All your prep should just be, let me make it to the next round. And yeah, I mean, day 1's it's harder than like an IC, in that you had to be invited there, and there's a lot of top players, you know, especially the later in the tournament. But it's similar in that, yeah, you just have to have a broad matchup spread and just kind of approach it like, yeah, I have to go X2 and Swiss to make it to the next day.
Let's just talk about the 6 Pokemon you used and break them down a little bit.
Alright, yeah, so as I said earlier, I was pretty influenced by Pado's team, the Moltres one. So the main core of the team was Zacian, Kyogre, Incineroar, and Shedinja. And I've been using Assault Vest Kyogre all year. I'm most comfortable with it just because it feels like it patches so much in team building. And I don't know, it's a very good Pokemon. I feel like it suits me very well, like the way I approach team building, in that I try and, you know, patch up as many matchups as possible with my restricteds. Like Kyogre, when it has an Assault Vest, much better into Regieleki, much better into Calyrex Shadow stuff. and it just makes it more flexible in Dynamax, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's the big star of the team. It's a Kyogre. Max Geyser is incredibly strong. You max it pretty much almost every game, unless you're bringing Thundurus. And it's paired next to Zacian, my other favorite restricted, just because he's broken. I was really, really inspired by Gabriel Agatti's Zacian spread, just because it was so bulky, it lived everything, and it was really good into Palkia Ice Rider and opposing Kyogres, just because it could live like Water Spout, it could live a Max Quake from Palkia, and I just thought that like special defense bulk was really good, especially on a Shedinja team. So that was like what I knew I wanted to bring to Worlds, was the, you know, bulky Zacian, and then we did mess around with like really, really, really bulky Mystic Water Kyogre for a little bit, but ultimately we stuck with Comfort and used AV, just because it's, you know, so much more flexible into a Lecky, which I'll probably talk about my day 1 set that got me into day 2 a little bit later, but it was really important there. Yeah, the next mons are Shedinja. I mean, Shedinja's just so useful into the Kyogreization mirror, because both the Pokemon I just talked about cannot touch it, unless you run Snarlzation, in which case, I mean, you deserve to win. But yeah, so Shedinja's there. It's just so disruptive. It can be brought into Calyrex Shadow if they don't have like Indeedee, you know. You can Shadow Sneak it. It's really good into Palkia Ice Rider. Even if they have Flamethrower in testing, it seemed like fine. Like they have to get it, they have to call it. It's just really good at stalling turns in a Dynamax format. Thundurus was a mon that it felt really important to not just have like one static mode. I think that's something that a lot of players aren't very good at adjusting to in team building, especially when they're doing just like constant best of 3s with someone. They're just like, yeah, I have this one game plan and it works great. But I mean, sometimes it's the person you're practicing against, and it's just really important to be like flexible and have multiple options. So Thundurus was really important in having some like variance in your matchups, and it was good into like Calyrex Shadow teams. It was good into opposing Kyogre teams. It was also like our Charizard, like Groudon Gastrodon matchup. Very good into those teams. Very good into Lunaludon and stuff too, depending on the version of Thundurus we brought. But I will admit that like Rinyasun was kind of iffy at times. It wasn't our strongest matchup, and that's probably one of my regrets. Is like, I mean, I didn't play any, which is funny, but I did not expect there to be that many Rinyasuns at Worlds.
Yeah, there is a lot. I mean, even in Top Cut, we saw them we saw Rinya use Rinya, and we saw
Davide, Carrere had Rinya.
Eric
had Rinya. Yeah, there's like a bunch of Rinyas in Cut, and I mean, it's a phenomenal team. I just did not expect there to be that many, you know. Yeah, and the final Pokemon of the team was our Prankster user. It was either Grimsnurl or Whimsicott. Now, one of the first adjustments we made was to use Grimsnurl over Porygon 2 on Pado's team. So that's kind of what we were testing the whole time. It had Berry because, you know, living an extra Zacian hit was cool. And most people don't play Rough Game 1. So it was really good. I played Dewey C at NAIC, and I really liked their Grimsnurl, so I wanted to test it out, and it worked really nicely. It was really good into like a lot of Calyrex Shadow Whimsicott teams, you know, the Alan Brown special. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty keen on using Grimsnurl day 1, just because I expected to see a lot of those Alan Brown teams with Whimsicott Thundurus. Yeah, and then I switched day 2 to Whimsicott, and I like kind of regret it, but I also don't necessarily. Like, I thought it was a fine switch, and I had practiced with both of them a lot. Whimsicott kind of gave me a better matchup into teams like what Edu used to win, and I was pretty comfortable with you know, using Tailwind and Kyogre. I had used that, you know, at Milwaukee and Nationals, and I just really like Charm Light Screen. So I was pretty comfortable with making the change. I think the reason that I regret it is that especially, you know, the matchup doc and stuff that we were talking about, all of it was written mostly for Grimsnurl, and I feel like most of our practice was for Grimsnurl just because that was our day one team, and I was still, deciding, do I even want to switch day two? But I felt like it was good because it let me also run Max Darkness on Thunderous, which was good until like Lunala Groudon, and so I was like, I want to make the switch. I was really tired after day one, and I feel like I needed to do a little more prep to feel like as comfortable with it. So I think that was like kind of my only regret, is that like I wish I was a bit more familiar with the lines after the Whimsicott switch, because I mean, Reflect and Charm, they do similar things, but they're not the same.
Yeah. So obviously you made it through day one. Is there any notable matchups or matches you want to talk about?
I think there were like two major ones. One of them was versus like Eternatus Shedinja, and like they ended up making day two as well. It just felt really hard because I was like, they had a DD2 and it was Sash, but that meant the Shedinja wasn't, so which is what eventually allowed me to win. But nah, that shit was scary because I'd never played it really, so I was like, I don't know what to do necessarily. But that's another game where Assault Vest Kyogre was really good, just because I could take the Dynamax Cannon really well, and the Ogre Mirror was like, back and forth. I think I was faster, I don't remember, which is always nice. But yeah, that one was just kind of scary because of Eternatus and Shedinja. The more notable matchup was probably my stream game, which was really crazy. I recommend you guys watch it just because, spoilers, I won. But yeah, it was like Regieleki, Whimsicott, and game one, I just get rolled because I did not expect Fake Tears and I did not expect Encore.
Lock it up and make it impossible for the Zacian. You're just going to have to get around these every other turn protects and hope that, there's not too many double protects to have to avoid here to close this one up, as we see the Flareblitz come out into the Zacian. And
yeah, and so I was just like, 0-1 on stream. I was like, all right, I have no clue what I'm supposed to do into this. This is crazy. If I lead, Grimsnurl Kyogre, like, I light screen, I could probably live one lightning. And I saw that they led the same thing again, but he was so willing to max guard, like, his Regieleki that I was like, if I get this turn wrong, I lose. Like, I'm gonna kill this Whimsicott. And in my mind, I thought that was a huge read, because if I got that wrong, I kind of just lost turn one. But yeah, it kind of just, like, showcased how the team had, like, a bunch of tools to, like, force tough situations, where, like, if I was Mystic Water, I would have auto-lost. Shedinja created a lot of variance in that matchup. And, yeah, I think that was just, like, a really important game for me, because I managed to stay calm on stream, especially, and, just showed you how broken Kyogre is and how important preserving your Dynamax is, and just, like, favorable trades. Also, that guy was super nice.
Any other notable day two matches? Because obviously you got to play in the second day of competition against the very best in the world.
Yeah, I don't know if anything, like, particularly interesting happened in my games. I lost round one due to just, like, playing bad, which, is not very notable, but I played two Japanese players who were my second and third losses, Shohei Komura, Zine, and then Kiwamu Endo. I don't remember their username, but they're very good and have, like, a lot of finishes. But yeah, both of them had the same six, which was, like, Thundy, Zacian, Incin, Ogre, Whimsrilla. And it seemed to be, like, a lot of the Japanese players running Protect Incin. And Zine was Choppleberry, which was really hard for me, because a lot of the time with Shedinja, you kind of just, you max your Kyogre, and you let it take damage, and you let Zacian sweep in the back. And it's nice to have, two Incineroar answers. But when they have, like, Protect Choppleberry, it gets a lot harder to kill. And I don't know if it was worse or just different, but Kiwamu had Rocky Helmet Incin, which was also really annoying. But yeah, both of those games were notable in that it just showed how, like, my lack of prep was coming for me, and, like, I guess my lack of confidence too. Because those were two teams that, like, I felt like were auto wins. Like, these are, like, the teams I prepped for. This is exactly what I want to play every round. and then I was too scared to commit to like new game plans, and then I feel like I just like overall played bad, and they just played better than me. So those were two notable games in understanding how I can be better moving forward.
So obviously Worlds is international. You play against a lot of different players. Do you think that playing against like the Japanese players, for example, or like primarily more Europeans, because I know I played very little Americans, obviously, because it's Worlds, but do you think that has an impact on like the way you play and the way you have to approach preparing for these tournaments, like since it is so different than playing in a North American regional?
It's definitely different. It's kind of hard to gauge exactly how or articulate how. I mean, obviously with Japanese players, I feel like there is just like a larger gap between like the American scene and the Japanese scene. Whereas like Europe, I feel like I know a lot more about what the metagame's up to. And I think that's like increasingly changing, at least, because there's a lot of players, that are part of both communities, or at least invested in knowing like Japanese results and stuff. But yeah, like I think next Worlds will be even more different. I think that will probably be the craziest Worlds we've ever had, and I'm very excited just because I think Japan has proven time and time again that they are like the strongest region. Well, one of the strongest regions. Yeah. They're just incredibly good, and it's interesting because a lot of their circuit is best of 1, but I mean they still crush it in best of 3. Like there's nothing more to say really. But yeah, the metagame is very different. And preparation, I didn't want to treat it too differently as like any IC really. I did know that Europeans like Calyrex shadowization a little bit more, so I kept that in mind, and nobody uses Palkia Ice Rider there, which was interesting. So I did feel like it was kind of a good call, and Paul Chua did very well with it. But no, I don't think you should really change your prep too much, because regardless, going into any event, you should strive to bring a consistent team,
Yeah, and give yourself options, wait out, play. Yeah, I always think that's super important.
Exactly.
So yeah, you touched on basically everything. What are your thoughts on this team overall? Like, do you think you wish you could make changes and go back, change anything?
I mean, probably have a better Rinya Sun matchup, but I didn't play any, so I can't say I care too much. But maybe if I played better and made top cut, I would have played one. So I mean, I had win cons, they just weren't as strong as I'd like them to be. So I would probably try and refine that more, and then just have more dedicated preparation with a potential alternate route I was gonna go, like Whimsicott.
Yeah,
I think I also could have just stayed with Grimsnurl. That would have been good.
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest thing is definitely feeling prepared, and like your mentality going into the event. Like it's different for everyone, and everyone, I guess, works with like different motivators. Like some people need that, like, I suck, I guess. Like I need to win. Like this is everything, But for me, like, I can't do that. For me, it's super important to just take it lightly and understand that I'm here to have fun. This is something I care about, and I want to do well. And I just need to trust myself. Like, I put in the preparation, I will do well. And if it doesn't, let's see why, Yeah, so I think it's very important for people to figure out what works best for them. And, continue to just figure out and prep. How can I, be the best prepared for this tournament?
I definitely agree. So moving forward, what are your plans for next year, your hopes?
I feel really confident. I feel very, very motivated after Worlds, especially with such a dominant Worlds win, going undefeated. I definitely wanted, I want to win Worlds. I also just feel like every tournament I went to this year was, it was hard, but like I felt good. Like I felt like I could have won any of them if I played better. So I feel like going into next season, I feel like I can cut every tournament. I mean, that's the mentality I have right now. And if I don't, like, that's okay. But I feel very good about it. I'm very happy that there's no Dynamax anymore. I feel like that suits how I, want to play the game, how I enjoy the game at least. But yeah, I think I'm a much smarter player than I used to be in terms of preparing for events. And you kind of have to be as you get older. You don't really have the time to like spam like Pokemon all day. Not that I don't do that, but yeah, like I feel a little bit smarter about how to prep for these tournaments, and I just overall feel very, very happy with where I am as a like competitive player and my mindset and stuff. So I feel like going into next year, dude, I'm getting that day 2 invite for sure.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to say? Like, that's really all the questions I had. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
I don't know. No, not really. I feel like I'm still figuring out how to articulate certain parts of like my mindset, really, and like, because I think it could be helpful to other people too. But it is important to understand that like I think every person has a different different way of being the best player they can be. Like I think you and I are a little different. I think Chemo is a little different, and I think we benefit from things in different ways. But yeah, I mean, shout out you and Chemo and everyone in Tub. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining me. I guess I'll have the rental code for the team if you want to play around with it. Like, we don't have much time left of this format. But
you
know,
should do
it's
something else probably. I don't know.
but the pace is there if you want to check it out. If you want to look at it, run calcs against it, see what we did. But yeah, that's really all we got. Thank you for joining me, Raghav. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate it greatly.
Follow me on Twitter.
Follow Raghav on Twitter. Twitter's down below. Follow. But yeah, that's all we got. Thanks for joining me. It was a good interview.
Course. Anytime.
All right, we'll see you guys later. Bye.